The arrival of the ban. In the midst of a galaxy riddled with ancient species and technologies, the humans were a recent addition. Despite their relatively short history in the stars, their impact had been seismic. Some called them a force of nature, others a curse. But no one could deny the unstoppable momentum of humanity's growth in the galaxy. It was that very momentum that would bring about their banishment from galactic warfare, one of the most contentious decisions in the history of the Galactic Council. The Zorgon Confederacy and the Draconus Empire had long been at war, their conflict stretching across countless star systems. Planets had fallen, civilizations had crumbled, and yet the war dragged on. But something had shifted when humanity arrived on the galactic scene. The Zorgon forces, known for their brutal tactics and unyielding nature, found themselves suddenly outmatched by the ferocity of the human warriors. The Draconus, an ancient species of massive winged creatures, had always relied on their intelligence and strategic planning to maintain power. But they too were unprepared for what the humans brought to the table. The first encounter had been swift and brutal. A human marine force, led by a grizzled veteran named Jake Adams, had made landfall on the Zorgon homeworld. The Zorgons were prepared for another wave of human colonists, a peaceful arrival that would eventually lead to the galaxy's newest members joining their ranks. But what they got instead was a battalion of soldiers, the likes of which had never been seen before. The humans swept across the planet, using technology they had developed through their ingenuity and determination. They didn't fight the way the Zorgons expected. They didn't hold back or wait for reinforcements. The humans fought with an intensity and brutality that was unparalleled. Their soldiers, equipped with adaptive armor and weapons that evolved in real time based on the battlefield's needs, tore through the Zorgon ranks. They were relentless. Each human warrior outperformed their alien counterparts in efficiency, adaptability, and sheer willpower. There was no mercy. There were no negotiations, just victory, hard-earned and unyielding. It was this relentless nature that had earned humanity the fear and ire of the galactic powers. At the Galactic Council, far removed from the chaos of the front lines, Vortis, a Draconus diplomat, sat anxiously. He had just arrived from the war zone after delivering a dire message about the losses his people had suffered at the hands of the humans. The Draconus Empire, once feared across the stars, was now on the defensive. They needed help, desperately, but there was one problem. The Galactic Council had long been wary of human involvement in any interstellar conflict. Since their first arrival, the humans had shown a unique ability to quickly shift the balance of power in any war, often to the detriment of the existing galactic powers. As Vortis strode through the crowded terminal of the Council's capital planet, he collided with none other than Jake Adams himself. The human's presence was unmistakable. His hardened face, his weathered uniform, and the unmistakable aura of someone who had seen the worst of what the galaxy had to offer. Vortis's mind raced. Why was this human here? Hadn't the Council outlawed their involvement in warfare after their last campaign? Was Jake Adams defying the ban? The two locked eyes for a moment, an unsettling silence hanging between them. Jake's eyes narrowed, a faint glint of recognition in them, but there was no time for pleasantries. With a quick nod, Jake spoke, his voice rough and dry from years of battle. "You'll learn the truth soon enough, Vortis," Jake said cryptically. "Don't let your people's pride cost them more than it already has." Vortis watched as the human disappeared into the crowd, leaving him with a sense of unease he couldn't shake. What had Jake meant? And what was this truth he spoke of? Minutes later, Vortis stood before the Galactic Council, prepared to share the grim news. He recounted the brutality of the Zorgons' tactics and the urgency of the situation. His people, the Draconus, were losing ground rapidly, and they needed assistance. Fast. But as he spoke, a fierce debate erupted among the council members. Some believed that humanity's involvement in galactic warfare had been a necessary evil, something that had tilted the scales in favor of the Council's objectives. But others, including the Xylarch, an ancient race of cold, calculating engineers, were adamant that humans were far too unpredictable, far too dangerous to be allowed on the battlefield. "You don't understand," Vortis pleaded. "The Zorgons will wipe us out if we don't intervene now. We need the humans." "No," interjected Varian, the representative from the Greenwich, an insectoid species. "The humans' interference in the war has made it worse. Their tactics, unpredictable, violent, they have no place here. If we let them back into the conflict, we risk losing control of everything." Vortis was growing desperate. The Council had made its decision long ago. The humans would not be allowed to fight. But as the debate continued, a horrifying realization began to form in Vortis's mind. The ban on human soldiers wasn't just a matter of strategy or concern for galactic peace. There was something deeper, something more sinister at play. The real reason humans were banned from galactic warfare wasn't just because of their violence. It was because of their ability to win. The humans, with their sheer willpower and ingenuity, had disrupted the long-standing power dynamics that the Council had worked so hard to maintain. The Council, comprised of ancient and powerful species, was afraid of losing their dominance. And humans, with their unique blend of technology, creativity, and unyielding spirit, were the biggest threat to that dominance. As Vortis contemplated this new understanding, he knew that time was running out. The Zorgon forces were advancing, and the Draconus Empire could not stand alone for much longer. But the Council's hesitation might prove fatal. The truth, Vortis realized, was more complicated than he ever could have imagined. And the consequences of that truth would shape the fate of billions across the galaxy. The hidden truths unfold. The Galactic Council's chambers were silent as Vortis, the Draconus diplomat, stood before the assembled representatives of the galaxy's most powerful species. His heart raced with a mixture of frustration and fear. His people, the Draconus Empire, were on the verge of collapse. If the Zorgons pressed any harder, they would be wiped from the stars, but the Council, as usual, seemed more interested in debating than acting. Their reluctance to acknowledge the full gravity of the situation felt like a knife in his chest. They had no idea what it meant to face such an enemy, a relentless, unstoppable force bent on total destruction. Vortis clenched his fists, fighting the urge to lash out at the members of the Council, who sat behind their stone-faced expressions, oblivious to the true horrors of war. "You must listen," Vortis pleaded again. "The Zorgons are not a threat we can handle alone. We need human assistance, now." At the far end of the chamber, a tall, angular figure stood, a representative of the Telarch, an ancient race of logical minds and master engineers who had long been allies of the Council. Their cold, calculating manner was as much a part of their identity as their technology. The Telarch had been instrumental in advancing the galaxy's technological development, but their rigid pragmatism often clashed with the more emotional and passionate species. This, Vortis knew, was where the true resistance to humanity's involvement in galactic warfare lay. The Telarch representative, named Soren, fixed Vortis with a piercing gaze, his metallic voice echoing through the chamber. "You ask for the aid of the humans, but what do you truly expect? Do you believe that their involvement will change the tides of battle?" Soren's voice was laced with disdain. "Their methods are too erratic, too violent. They are a weapon without purpose, a tool that cannot be controlled." Vortis's temper flared, but he held it in check. "You don't understand. The Zorgons will wipe us all out if they are not stopped. We need the human soldiers. Their unpredictability is exactly what we need. If the Zorgons have no idea what they're dealing with, we may have a chance to turn the tide." Soren's thin lips curled into a sneer. "Perhaps it is the unpredictability that makes them dangerous. We do not need soldiers who act on impulse. We need strategy, control, precision. The humans have something you don't understand." Vortis snapped. "They have heart. They don't give up. They don't bow to the inevitability of defeat. They create their own future, and that's why they're dangerous. Because when you think they've been beaten, when you think they've failed, they rise again. The chamber was heavy with tension. The council members murmured among themselves, the debate escalating into a cacophony of voices. But in the midst of the chaos, one voice remained calm, steady, yet filled with a sense of urgency. It was the voice of Grandmaster Kor, a towering figure among the council, known for his wisdom and experience. His race, the Solarian, was as old as the stars themselves, and his presence commanded respect. Kor's deep-set eyes, though ancient, still held the fire of a warrior. He was one of the few who had witnessed firsthand the explosive rise of humanity. He understood their potential more than anyone else in the room. "I have seen them," Kor said slowly, his voice quiet, but heavy with meaning. "The humans. They are not like us. They do not conform to the rules we have lived by for eons. They defy logic, and in doing so, they surpass it. I have fought alongside them. I have seen them achieve what no one thought possible." There was a collective hush in the chamber. The other council members turned to Kor, the weight of his words sinking in. He continued, his voice almost a whisper, yet filled with the strength of someone who had lived through the countless cycles of war and peace. "The truth is," Kor began, his tone growing darker, "we fear them. We fear what they represent. Not just their power on the battlefield, but their potential to disrupt everything we have built. The balance we have maintained for so long. Humans have the ability to break it, and if they continue on their path, they may take us all with them." Vortis's mind raced. The council had always been full of secrets and half-truths, but now it seemed they were finally addressing the real reason behind the humans' exclusion from the war. It wasn't about morality or strategy. It was about power. The humans were a threat to the very order the council had fought to maintain. They were too unpredictable, too powerful, and their unyielding spirit could unravel the fragile peace the galaxy had enjoyed for millennia. Vortis felt the weight of the council's decision bearing down on him. The Draconus were fighting a losing battle, and he knew they could not survive much longer without outside intervention. But the humans, would they even agree to fight for the Draconus Empire? They had their own reasons for being banned from galactic warfare, and they had learned long ago to distrust the politics of the Galactic Council. In that moment, a realization struck Vortis like a bolt of lightning. The humans weren't simply fighting for the Draconus, or for any other species. They fought for something deeper, something beyond alliances and treaties. They fought because it was in their nature to survive, to fight, to push forward no matter the odds. They fought not just for victory, but for the future. Back at the front lines, Jake Adams, the human veteran, led his squad into yet another brutal engagement with the Zorgons. His face was a mask of determination, a cold look in his eyes that spoke of years of war, loss, and unrelenting drive. Despite the endless bloodshed, the human soldiers had one thing that no other species had: hope. They had hope because they believed, deep in their bones, that they could win. That no matter how many times they fell, no matter how impossible the odds, they would rise again. It was this indomitable will that had drawn the attention of the galactic powers, and it was this very will that made the humans the most dangerous force in the galaxy. Jake Adams didn't know what awaited him back in the Galactic Council chambers, but he knew one thing for certain: the war would continue. The human race had come to stay, and no matter how many times they were banned, or pushed aside, or dismissed by the old powers of the galaxy, they would fight on. Because that's what they did. They fought, they bled, and in the end, they won. A fateful decision. The tension in the Galactic Council's chambers was unbearable. Vortis, the Draconus diplomat, had hoped that by revealing the true nature of the crisis, the Council would finally recognize the gravity of the situation. Yet the more he spoke, the more entrenched the representatives became in their stubborn opposition. The Xilarch delegation, who represented the galaxy's most technologically advanced faction, remained adamantly against human involvement. They believed that humanity's unpredictable nature posed too great a risk, one that could potentially unravel the carefully maintained peace. Grandmaster Kor's voice had offered a moment of clarity in the chaos, yet even his words of wisdom did little to sway the majority of the council. The Solarian, ancient and powerful as they were, had always held a unique perspective, one that transcended the galaxy's politics. Kor's understanding of humanity was both a blessing and a curse. He knew their strengths and their weaknesses better than most, and he had lived through enough battles to recognize when a storm was coming. The room fell into a tense silence as the council deliberated. Representatives from various species sat, their eyes fixated on the holographic projections of the battlefield that stretched across the room. The Zorgons, a reptilian species known for their unrelenting brutality, had advanced on the Draconus Empire's core systems. It was clear that if something wasn't done soon, the Draconus would be obliterated, and with them, the delicate balance of power within the galaxy. "I believe," said Vortis, breaking the silence, "that we must reconsider our position on the humans. We may not like their methods, but we cannot deny their ability to get results. The Draconus will not survive much longer, and the Zorgons will continue their genocidal campaign unless we act now." But even Vortis's impassioned plea fell on deaf ears. The debate only grew more heated, the voices growing louder and more entrenched. Some argued that the humans' violent nature would only escalate the war, while others feared that allowing them back into the conflict would destabilize the galaxy's fragile peace. In the midst of the chaos, one voice rose above the rest, one that had remained silent until now. It was the voice of Commander Lyra, a human officer who had been brought to the council to represent her people. She had been quiet for most of the discussions, observing the fractious arguments from the sidelines. But now, she could no longer sit idly by. Lyra stood from her seat, her eyes blazing with a fire that few in the room had ever seen. Her uniform, worn and battle-scarred from years of service, was a testament to the battles she had fought and won. She was not a diplomat like Vortis, nor was she an ancient being steeped in the politics of the galaxy. She was a soldier, and soldiers knew how to act in moments of crisis. "If you are so afraid of us," Lyra began, her voice carrying a quiet but unmistakable strength, "then you are underestimating the very thing that has allowed humanity to survive for as long as we have. It's not our weapons, our technology, or even our tactics. It's our spirit. It's our refusal to back down, no matter the odds. You want us to stay out of the war because you fear what we can do. But what you fail to realize is that we are the ones who will save you. Not because we're stronger or smarter, but because we fight for something that none of you seem to understand." The room was silent. Even the representatives of the other species paused, taken aback by the intensity in Lyra's words. It was rare for any human to speak so boldly in the face of the council, especially with so many of the galaxy's most powerful species watching. But Lyra was not just any human. She had witnessed firsthand the horrors of war, the devastating losses, and the immense sacrifices her people had made. She had seen the cost of standing by and doing nothing. And she knew, deep down, that humanity was destined to play a pivotal role in this galactic conflict, whether the Council accepted it or not. "The humans you fear are not the mindless savages you believe us to be," Lyra continued. "We are not here to conquer or destroy. We are here to protect, to fight for what is right, and to defend those who cannot defend themselves. We are the soldiers who rise when others fall. We are the ones who face the darkness and push back, no matter how many times we're knocked down. If you want to win this war, if you want to stop the Zorgons from annihilating the Draconus and anyone who stands in their way, you will have to put your trust in us. We are not the enemy. We are your best chance at survival." Her words resonated through the chamber, and for a moment, even the most skeptical council members seemed to falter. The Xilark, usually stoic and unmoved by emotional pleas, looked momentarily unsettled. The Greenwich, a race of insectoid diplomats, exchanged glances with one another, as if contemplating the gravity of Lyra's statement. Grandmaster Kor, who had once shared his own experience of fighting alongside the humans, nodded slowly in approval. And then something unexpected happened. The chair of the Galactic Council, a representative from the Tylorian species, a race known for their pragmatism and near-obsessive commitment to neutrality, raised his hand to silence the room. His voice, when it came, was calm and measured, yet it carried the weight of authority. "You speak with conviction, Commander Lyra," the Tylorian representative said, "and your words are not without merit. But the question remains, what will the humans gain from all of this? You have been banned from galactic warfare for a reason. The rest of the galaxy is not so eager to welcome you back into the fold. What assurances can you provide that humanity will act in the best interests of the galaxy as a whole?" Lyra took a deep breath, the weight of the question settling on her shoulders. She had anticipated this. The Council's fear was not just rooted in humanity's unpredictability, it was also in their autonomy. The humans were known for acting independently, without concern for galactic politics. The Council could not control them, and that was a dangerous thing. "What do we gain?" Lyra repeated the question, her gaze steady and unwavering. "We gain a galaxy worth fighting for. We gain the chance to protect the innocent, to defend those who cannot defend themselves. We don't fight for glory or for power. We fight because we are human. And that is something the Zorgons do not understand. They believe they can destroy us, just like they've destroyed so many others. But they're wrong." The Tylorian representative stared at her for a long moment, as if weighing her words carefully. Finally, he nodded. "Very well. The humans may return to the front lines. But under one condition. You will be bound by the rules of the Council. No independent actions, no deviations from the directives we issue." Lyra's heart surged with hope. Agreed. The decision had been made. The humans would once again join the fray. But this time, their role would be far more significant than anyone could have anticipated. Back on the front lines, Jake Adams and his squad continued to fight against the Zorgon forces, unaware of the shifting tides in the Galactic Council. The humans had been given a second chance, and they would prove their worth on the battlefield. But for the Council, the real challenge was just beginning. Trusting the very force they had banned from the war, and hoping they weren't too late.